All of a sudden, Jesus comes into an environment where 15,000 people minimally are there. And if you believe the Bible for what it is, 14,999 of them have not brought anything to eat. 14,999 of them are looking around going, did you pack a picnic? No, I thought you packed a picnic. No, I thought you packed a picnic. 14,990 of them haven't brought anything to eat. By the way, that is their track record. These were people on the Moses welfare plan, y'all, all right? I mean, Jesus always had to drop manna from the sky, all right? He had to light their path with a cloud of fire. They always came unprepared, always had entitlement, and they show up. Most of them are not there because they think Jesus is the bread of life. They just think he's the bread giver. They just want to see the freak show. And they're all hungry, and Jesus looks at hungry people. And by the way, can I just say this to you as creatives? Jesus was the greatest creative. Nobody could be more creative than the creator. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. That's Jesus, right? So in the beginning, before there was a beginner who began the beginning. It's all him, right? His name is Jesus. And so the most creative person ever, the most incredible orator, Jesus knew the Word because he was the Word made flesh. The most perfect person in timing. Talk about somebody who knew how to time a message. The most like, I know what everybody's thinking at all times. The most incredible creative person ever to communicate to a massive group of people looks at a bunch of hungry people. And you know what he decides to do? He decides to get a stage, quickly call the latest things, get some like plasma, some LED curtains going so everybody would be wowed, and then he could come up and have Helvetica font with some swigglies while he came up and preached a really good and relevant message with a countryman. That's not what he did. You know what the greatest creative of all times did? The greatest creative of all times, put this in your pocket, all right? The greatest creative of all time found somebody hungry and he said, let's feed them. And he fed them an all-you-can-eat buffet. But it's amazing what he did. He takes his disciples. He doesn't need the disciples, but he takes his disciples and says, go get working. And then this little boy shows up. I love the little boy. The little boy has nowhere near enough for himself. I mean, for everybody else. He's got plenty for himself, but instead of hoarding it, you know what he does? I love the little boy. He just shares. And I love Jesus. The most beautiful part of that whole story is not the feeding and all that. The most beautiful part is that there's that little moment in the Bible where it just says, so Jesus takes the fish and bread from the little boy. He doesn't look at the little boy and go, who do you think you are? You think I need your fish and bread? I don't need you involved. He decides to let the little boy in his generosity get involved. He blesses him by letting him be a part of worship service. He lets him serve. And he takes a little bit of fish, a little bit of bread, and then he lets his disciples get involved. And the next thing you know, man, it's an all-you-can-eat buffet. Does Jesus need the little boy's fish and bread? Does he literally physically need fish and bread to touch so that he can He doesn't need the little boy's fish and bread. He is God, but he lets the little boy be involved. He doesn't need the disciples to feed the masses. They could all just be like, I'm full. He can do that, but he doesn't. He lets a mountain of people be served by a bunch of servants. He doesn't rob them of this beautiful thing of ordaining them, blessing them with sweat equity in the day. So maybe the big takeaway for us as we look at this as people who belong to a local thing called church. By the way, the church is God's plan A. There is no plan B. That is where we serve. That is where we go and we try to invigorate people in our creative senses to join labor with us, to move the ball forward for the kingdom of God. It's amazing how in that little moment we just see Jesus just allow people in. And maybe the big takeaway for us is like, how often do we ask this question? We might be able to get it a little bit better by hiring it out. We might be able to outsource it and get a better product. But what we'll do is we'll rob people of the blessing of worship service, where in service there's a sanctification that goes on. And there's just something beautiful about us deciding we're going to let our people buy in. We're going to let our people be a part. And maybe we don't get the best product, but maybe it's not about the quality of the wall nearly as much as it is about the people that come together to build it.